So you built this careful, calculated self. One that tries hard, always performs, never lets the mask slip. You became the person you thought the world wanted you to be. But over time, that performance became exhausting. And somewhere along the way, you lost contact with who you really are beneath all the striving. That's the brutal irony of perfectionism. In trying so hard to be enough, you end up becoming less of yourself. You live on edge, waiting for the moment someone points out a flaw, calls you out, sees through you. And you think, if I can just keep it all together, I'll finally feel safe. But that safety never comes. Because it's built on a lie that you are only lovable in your edited form, that your worth is conditional, that your place in this world is earned by what you do, not by who you are. So you hustle for approval, you chase applause, you polish every sentence, every photo, every moment. But inside you feel hollow. Because deep down, you know it's not real. You know the version of yourself others admire is a highlight reel, not a person. And the scariest part, you're not even sure anyone would love the real you if they saw it. So you hide, behind productivity, behind perfection, behind a life lived for the sake of appearance. And yet, the more you hide, the more disconnected you feel from others, from yourself, from life. Because connection requires presence. It requires authenticity. It requires being seen. But perfectionism doesn't allow that. It says, only show up when you're flawless. And that means you never show up at all. You become a ghost in your own life, always preparing, never arriving. Ask yourself, how many moments have you missed because you were too focused on making them perfect? How many memories were lost to anxiety, to overthinking, to the desperate need to control everything? How many times have you withheld joy because you hadn't earned it yet? This isn't just a mindset issue. It's an existential crisis.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
A life spent chasing perfection is a life half-lived. Because while you're out there trying to become someone else, your actual life, the messy, beautiful, imperfect one, is passing you by. And this isn't just philosophy. This is neuroscience, psychology, and lived experience. Perfectionism activates your stress response. Enter. It keeps your nervous system on high alert. It floods your body with cortisol. It leads to burnout, insomnia, depression. It tricks your brain into thinking survival depends on performance. But it doesn't. You're not here to perform. You're here to live, to feel, to experience, and yes, to fail. Because failure is not the opposite of success. It's the path to it. Every meaningful thing you'll ever create will come with flaws. Every deep relationship you'll ever have will come with vulnerability. Every act of courage will come with risk. That's life. That's what makes it rich. If you wait until you're perfect to show up, you'll wait forever. So stop waiting. Start living. Start showing up as you are. With your fears, with your mess, with your humanity. Because that's where life begins. Not at the end of the road when everything's finally fixed. But right here, in the raw, unedited, unfinished now. What would your life look like if you gave yourself permission to be beautifully unfinished? To love yourself not despite your flaws, but with them? What would happen if you stopped running from your imperfections and started embracing them as part of your story? not as problems to solve, but as proof that you're alive, trying, growing, that you're human, and that's more than enough. The fear beneath the flaw, why we're terrified to be seen as we are. Perfectionism doesn't start with the desire to be great, it begins with the fear of being seen, truly, deeply seen. Because to be seen is to be vulnerable, to be exposed. And if, like so many of us, you were ever taught explicitly or silently that love, safety, or acceptance were conditional, then the very idea of being seen as flawed feels dangerous. So you armor up, you sharpen yourself into something palatable. You edit your personality, your voice, your body, your emotions. You become skilled in the art of hiding in plain sight. You smile when you're breaking. You say, "I'm fine," when you're lost. You overachieve to distract from the ache of never feeling enough. But all of it, every polished sentence, every overworked project, every carefully posed photo is a desperate plea. Please don't reject me. Please tell me I'm okay. At the core of perfectionism is not pride, it's fear. A deeply rooted fear of rejection, of abandonment, of shame. And that's why perfectionism is so much more than a productivity issue, it's a spiritual one. It's about the story you tell yourself about your own worth. Because if you believe that your worth is conditional based on performance, appearance, achievement, then, of course, you'll be terrified of messing up. And, of course, you'll avoid risk. Of course, you'll obsess over every detail. The stakes are too high, not because the task matters so much, but because you've linked the task to your identity. But suddenly, a typo isn't just a mistake, it's proof that you're careless. A rejection isn't just a no, it's evidence that you're unlovable. That's the perfectionist trap. Everything becomes personal. And when everything is personal, everything becomes painful. That's why perfectionists often live in quiet agony. From the outside, they seem composed, competent, even impressive. But inside, it's a war zone. Every compliment triggers imposter syndrome. Every mistake feels like a collapse. Every moment of rest is haunted by guilt. And the most tragic part, perfectionists rarely feel proud of what they accomplish. Because even when they achieve something extraordinary, they discount it. They say, "It could have been better," or "I just got lucky," or "I should have done more." The bar keeps moving. The finish line keeps disappearing. And they're left chasing ghosts. So let's ask a hard question. Who would you be without your perfectionism? If you didn't have to prove your worth every day, how would you live? If you didn't have to earn love by being flawless, what would you create? Who would you connect with? What would you dare to do? And perhaps more terrifying, what pain would you finally have to face? Because beneath the perfection, there's pain. Pain we've buried, pain we've denied, pain we've tried to outwork, outperform, and outperfect. But pain doesn't disappear, it waits. And it manifests in anxiety, in burnout, in broken relationships, in loneliness, in numbness. That's the hidden cost of perfectionism. It keeps us from healing. Because it keeps us from being honest. And healing requires honesty. It requires saying, "I'm not okay." It requires admitting, "I made a mistake." It requires whispering, "I need help." But perfectionism won't let us say those things, because it tells us that needing help is weakness, and that vulnerability is failure, that being human is shameful. And that's the great lie. Because the truth is, all growth begins with imperfection. All connection begins with vulnerability. All healing begins with honesty. So if we want to be free, truly free, we have to confront the fear beneath our perfectionism. We have to ask ourselves, what am I so afraid people will see? And then, courageously, begin to show it. Not all at once, not recklessly, but slowly. With people we trust, in spaces that are safe. But we begin to let the masks slip. We begin to speak up when we're scared. We begin to take risks without knowing the outcome. We begin to live from a deeper truth that we are already enough, not because we're perfect, but because we're real. That's the truth perfectionism tries to bury. And that's what makes it so seductive. It offers a counterfeit version of safety, a fragile illusion of control. But it costs us our peace, our presence, our power. So the choice is ours. Do we keep chasing an image, or do we come home to ourselves? Do we keep performing for love, or do we risk being loved as we are? Do we keep editing our lives, or do we finally start living them messy, flawed and free? Because here's the secret: the people who truly change the world, the ones who leave legacies of meaning and impact, are not the ones who look perfect. They're the ones who are real, who are willing to be seen, who risk authenticity over approval, who choose courage over comfort, and who know that their worth was never up for debate. So let me ask you again, not rhetorically, who would you be without your perfectionism? And are you willing today, right now, to start finding out? The liberation of imperfection, how letting go sets you free. Letting go of perfectionism isn't a single act, it's a lifelong philosophy. It's the quiet, daily rebellion against a world that tells you to be flawless. It's the radical decision to show up anyway, to create anyway, to love anyway, even when you're scared, even when you're uncertain, even when you don't have everything figured out. Because the truth is, no one does. Everyone you admire, everyone you think has made it, is still battling their own doubts, their own fears, their own inner critics. The difference is, some of them have learned that waiting for perfection is a trap. And the ones who are truly free are not the ones who conquered their flaws, but the ones who stopped letting their flaws define them. They understood something most of us miss, that perfection is not the prerequisite for value, it's the enemy of it. Because when you're trying to be perfect, you're not being you. You're being a projection, a mask, a curated shadow of yourself. And the consequence is that no one really knows you, not even you. The real liberation comes not when you become flawless, but when you finally stop needing to be. That's when your life starts to breathe. That's when you start to laugh again, not because things are perfect, but because you're no longer suffocating under the pressure to make them so. That's when you start to love, not with conditions or strategies, but with your full, imperfect heart. And that's when you start to create, not for applause, not for validation, but because it brings you alive. And that aliveness, that's the real goal. Not perfection, aliveness, presence, joy. Being here, being real, being whole. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you let go of perfectionism, the more you open yourself up to growth. Not the kind of growth that's forced, manicured, or hustled, but organic, rooted, and honest. Because now mistakes are lessons. Failures are feedback. Vulnerability is strength. You become resilient, not because you never fall, but because you no longer believe falling makes you a failure. You stop measuring your life by outcomes and start measuring it by alignment. Am I living in integrity with who I really am? Am I making choices that honor my truth, not just my image? That's the shift. That's the work. And it changes everything. Your relationships deepen because you're no longer trying to impress, you're trying to connect. Your creativity expands because you're no longer trying to be right, you're trying to be real. Your inner life softens because you're no longer judging every flaw, you're listening to what your soul actually needs. And what it needs, more than anything, is your presence, your kindness, your permission to be human. That's what heals you. Not another achievement, not another 10-step system, not another round of self-punishment disguised as motivation, but compassion, grace, the quiet courage to say, I'm doing my best, and that's enough, because it is enough. You are enough. Not tomorrow, not when you hit the next goal, not when you finally fix that thing you hate about yourself, but now, as you are. And if that sentence makes you uncomfortable, sit with it. Ask yourself, why is it hard for me to believe that I'm enough right now? Who taught me otherwise? Whose voice still echoes in my mind, telling me I have to be more, do more, prove more? And am I ready to stop giving that voice control of my life? Because that's what this really comes down to: choice. Not a dramatic, one-time transformation, but a quiet, daily choice. To stop outsourcing your worth, to stop trying to earn love through performance, to stop running from the parts of yourself that are still in process, and instead to stand in the center of your own story and say, this is me. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I'm here, and I'm enough. That's not weakness, that's power, that's freedom. And that's where your real life begins. Not in the polished version of you, but in the honest one, the one who lets people in, the one who shows up even when it's messy, the one who dares to be seen, not because they're perfect, but because they're real. And in a world obsessed with perfection, realness is revolutionary. So be a revolution. Choose to be real. Choose to be free. Choose every day to show up as you are and trust that that is more than enough, because it is. And deep down, you've always known it.